The 2010s. A lot of great things came out in this decade alone. The 2000s was great, but this bumped it up a notch. But it also had its issues by the midway point. But the one thing that actually peaked this decade was anime. Did anime actually hit its peak in the 2010s? Well, I'd say it pretty much did. While classics concluded and great stories that we had been following since the 2000s finally ended, we also had new beginnings and, of course, reboots of those classic shows that we watched back in the day. But the 2010s delivered some of the biggest hits that people still talk about today, for good or bad, depending on how it went in the end. But, you know, big hits like Attack on Titan, Sword Art Online, My Hero Academia, One Punch Man, Steins Gate, Mob Psycho 100, Parasite the Maximum. The Fate series was going strong with great and beautiful animation. Psycho Pass, Demon Slayer, Dr. Stone, The Promised Neverland, at least season 1, Tokyo Ghoul, more of the Gundam series, and the list can go on and on and on. And you get the gist. I feel that there was more impact in the industry at this time period. While it was building in the 2000s, it wasn't like how it was when it came to the 2010s, and of course now. I do believe it blew up more in this decade than the previous. And of course you had Toonami that returned, which also helped boost that popularity, and I have a lot of fond memories watching those shows on Toonami. And yes, I liked Sword Art Online, even though it has issues, I understand, but there was a lot of impact with it. And of course My Hero Academia was the next like superhero anime. One Punch Man, pretty much a comedic side of heroes. There were the icons. When it comes to the characters that we would get this decade, some very well written, and of course there were some stinkers. I'm not gonna deny that. Though I can say is that this was also when it impacted pop culture media, because, well, we started to get some live action versions of these shows as well, which was great. I mean, Alita Battle Angel, even though that was like based off of the manga than the animated version, like the OVA. But either way, looking back on it, I do think the 2010s was that peak point. And of course it keeps expanding, though I will say the industry is, well, at least in the Western industry, they just assume people like the art style and that's why they think it's more popular. But in reality, that's just not the case. The stories were just really good. And some may not be your cup of tea, but, well, it's worth trying them out. If they aren't, then they aren't. But some you will get engaged in. A majority of them you will get engaged in, even if some of them are very, very funny or crazy. Of course, when it comes to the classics ending, some classics return like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and Hunter x Hunter, and of course Fruits Basket. Wow. This was also the same time where we got a new shonen called Black Clover, an anime that actually ended up redeeming itself as it went on. I didn't mind it from the very start, then the animation kind of just dipped dramatically, and then it had a comeback, which is a great example. And then of course the creator of Soul Eater had his own new show, Fire Force. Though I wouldn't say it's as good as Soul Eater, but that's just me. A lot of YouTubers talk about other specific shows of this time period, and then, well, some that are just remembered as being disappointments. I mean, that stuff happens. There's a lot of great ambitions, and then it just, well, it falls, but not all. This was also around the time when Funimation and Crunchyroll were also doing their own thing, so that was expanding the horizons. So if you were more of a sub person, Crunchyroll would offer the subs, while dubbed would be Funimation. I'm usually a dub guy myself, and now Crunchyroll is pretty much running the show on everything these days, but back then they were trying to do it that way. And it was usually competition, which was good for, well, I would say economic wise, it was good. Well, business keeps things going. But I do think this is where I also started to expand a bit more with anime, not just sticking with one specific anime, like Inuyasha being my favorite of all time. Like I moved on to newer and bigger things. I mean, don't get me wrong, Inuyasha is the reason I got into this whole world to begin with, but the 2010s really expanded my horizons even more. I wanted to get into more things, get into more shows, get into more movies. Well, anime in the anime department. Mainly, I would say what was great for the decade was me watching Toonami. Toonami really expanded it when it came back, and I've been watching Toonami since, almost like 10 years. Then I had to stop, which that could be a whole other episode entirely. But yeah, I stopped and I came back to watch some new stuff, or at least one that I've been meaning to rewatch again, and well, there's my excuse. Like Blue Exorcist. Yep, Blue Exorcist also came out this decade, and boy, it's actually still pretty good. I like it. Well, now, yeah, I would just say these shows are pretty much classics at this point. It's been a decade. Well, some of them right now. Just crazy how, looking back, it's just crazy. So yeah, you could definitely thank the 2010s for anime expanding more globally. And it ended up beating most competitions. Like, manga has already been like beating comic books. There are different reasons that it is doing that. One reason would be in particular with certain things that we just want to insert into things that we don't really want to see. We just want to have a story, or they change characters that don't act a certain way like how they used to, which is weird. Manga, I would say they have that same issue, but it's not as pushy, I would say. So that's why anime, I think, really boomed. But I think, like, mainly the end portion, it boomed just because of the issues going on in the entertainment industry at the time. But yeah, I think that would be for another episode, I would say. I do believe it was that peak of interest for the community at the time. And it's just grown. It's grown since the 2000s. It got bigger in the 2010s, and it's probably even bigger now. I still like to watch anime if it's good, if the story's good, not the art, but the story. These corporations really need to understand that it's mainly story, not really the art style that counts. Sorry that I went off course. Yeah, what was your favorite anime of the 2010s? Let me know down below. You could follow me wherever you're watching, or subscribe. Anyways, peace.
Why is it $39.99 for only 10 episodes? That's a ripoff! It's only 10 episodes! Why did they rip me off like that? I don't want to pay $39.99 for help. Why do they charge $39.99?